Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
And you weren't here for this one.
It was you. It's all you.
Oh, wait a minute. I wasn't there for that one. That was before. You were somewhere else, right?
You know, we've been making this show together for what? 15 years or 13 years. And I think there's only one or two occasions where we've ever done interviews independently of each other. I remember when you went to Washington once.
Yeah, that's right.
You did an interview there. But this is different. This was a crazy little tour in Germany and Switzerland, Berlin, Zurich, and Munich on behalf of Telerik. And I could go and you couldn't. So here you go. One of these weird interview situations.
I was putting on a little festival in New London, Keto Fest, which was a huge success.
Yeah,
but it was a shame because I really wanted to go. But we decided that you were going to do some interviews there and do some live shows and record them because hey, an interview's an interview. This is good stuff.
Yeah, no question. Yeah. And very happy with the shows I got. It's been great fun.
Great. Well, I can't wait to hear this one. And but before we do that, we have this little business of Better Know Framework.
All right, dude, what do you got?
This is so cool. Steve Strong sent this to me. It's a blog post from a guy. The blog post is called Web Breachers Hacking and Hiking Blog. And he had a little accident. He was playing volleyball and broke a toe, a weight-bearing bone in his foot, actually. And so the doctor basically told him he had to use a walker. And by walker, I mean, you ever see those things where people push they put their knee on it and then it's got wheels and they push it so there's no weight on their feet?
Right.
Yeah. So he basically got this thing that straps to your leg, and instead of pushing it with a wheel, it has a little extension with a sort of a foot on it, so you can
almost like a peg leg.
Yeah, like a peg leg, exactly. But your leg, your that bottom half of your leg and your foot sticks out and back. But you can use it just like you've got two legs. You don't have to wheel around. You can go on escalators and all that other kind of stuff. And so that's what he did. But then he wanted to bling it out. So,
as you do.
As you do. So he went to Adafruit and got this $25 complete computer and all these blinky lights. And the only thing he did was just program the lights.
Nice.
But he wanted to. He was just like, hey, man, if I'm going to hobble around like this, I want to draw some attention to myself because that's what you do.
Yeah.
So it's a great story, and he shares the code and he shares what he did. And I just encourage everybody to read it and check out the video too, where he actually does the lights, and it's pretty cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Hey, nice find. Good one.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. That's what I got. Who's talking to us?
We're going to talk UX with Jessica here. So I grabbed a comment off of show 1504, which was the UX design rants with Billy Hollis.
Yeah, right.
From December of 2017. You know Billy.
Of course.
He always has he's a little ranty at times here. But Joel has a nice rant back, which is just, I love everything about that. He starts off by saying, I could totally agree with Billy. The user experience for Skype is horrible.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one that thinks this.
It's getting worse, too.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time in Skype, although they finally forced us to upgrade. And the new one, there's some pieces missing, but it's better. A little. Yeah. Anyway, Joel goes on to say, toward the end of the show, Billy mentioned that you can't really go up to a user and ask them what features they want. I've often found that rather than asking what features a user wants, it helped to ask what they're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. By figuring out what the user's end goal is, then you can start to figure out what specific requirements are there to accomplish that goal, and then base any sort of design on those requirements. It sounds so elementary, but it's so rarely done well.
Right.
For example, if a user says, I need a text box and a button to send a message to another user, the question really should be, what are you trying to accomplish? Why are you needing to message another user? What information are you trying to relay? How urgent does that information need to be relayed? Should this information be relayed automatically? What will the receiving user do with this information? In some cases, the right solution might be to change the business practices. In other cases, an existing solution might work, while in other cases, they may actually need to do something in the way of sending a message. As software developers, we are far often too gung-ho about just building things that we often fail to stop and ask if they actually need to be built. Like a misquote from Jurassic Park, because is there anything better than a quote? It's a misquote. You programmers were so preoccupied with whether or not they could do something that they shouldn't stop to think if they should do something. Of course, in the Jurassic Park version, they're talking about making dinosaurs. But in this case, you're talking about making another messaging app, which, let's face it, is never a good idea. So, Joel, thank you so much for your comment. A copy of Music to Code By is on its way to you. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code By.
Yeah, and definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. We bling them out, man.
A few blinky lights, a little music. It's all good. I love this. I'm looking at the iWalk thing. He put a headlight on his knee.
Yeah,
There's a
he
light
did.
there, right?
Yeah.
It's like you see where he's going. I love it.
Hey, are you using the new version of Skype right now?
I am.
Because I can't hear you at all.
Really?
Your volume went from great to practically silent. Way to go, Microsoft.
Wow, that's really cool. And I wonder if it's I turned off all the automatic gain stuff. But
it just went completely down.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really awesome. I'm so happy about that.
I'm very happy about that. So, Richard, why don't you tell us about your conversation with Jessica?
So this was one of the first show we did on the Telerik Modern Web Tour, and it was in Berlin. We had a nice crowd, great space, too. And I was fortunate to be able to convince Jessica Engstrom to come with us. We've talked to her in the past about VR, AR-related stuff, but, she's got a real strong penchant for user design experiences as a whole. Of course, she deals with the 3D space, but she also deals with web and desktop apps. So we were able to just drill into that, how to get developers to think more about the UX. It was just this acknowledgement that it's super rare to find a dedicated UX person. And so we all need to sort of up our game. And so we talked about some tools and techniques and thinking around how to just consider UX in your day-to-day development efforts.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's roll it.
Hey Berlin, it's .NET Rocks!
All right, and we're here in Berlin at the first stop of this Telerik Modern Web Tour, and I have the good fortune to be talking to my friend Jessica Engstrom. And let's leave a little bit of the bio here, because it's a good one. Being a geek shows in all parts of her life, whether it be in organizing hackathons, running a user group, and a podcast with her husband, game nights, retro or virtual reality, with friends, just catching the latest superhero movie because she's a Marvel fan, for better or worse, or speaking internationally at conferences. And her favorite topics are UX, UI, mixed reality, and other futuristic tech. And Jessica is a Windows development MVP. And together with her husband, Jimmy, she runs a company called AZM Dev, which is focused on HoloLens, Windows development, UX, and the teaching of the same. Because you don't just live the UX life. You teach the UX life.
I do, for developers especially.
Which I find very interesting, because there's also been an energy around this is a specialty that other people should be doing rather than development. But you don't agree?
Well, it's not what the reality is telling us.
Right.
Of course, if you have the funding for it and then the people for it, it would be better if you have a UX team.
Okay.
But usually you don't.
It's a lot of software built with just one dev, two devs.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you have a larger company, sometimes it just gets into your lap.
Right.
So you need to know a little bit about it so your UX won't be bad, at least.
I've often found that there are folks that are .NET developers, they live in C#, but they got a knack for SQL, and so they tend to own the SQL pieces of an app. Do you see that with UX as well? It's like, in theory, your life is C#, but you got a knack for UX, so we're going to put more of that user definition in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as you pick up some of the things that are not .NET, I think your boss will feel that you did a great job with this. So we just put everything.
So now you were standing closest to the UX when the last guy quit. So now you're the UX person.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit like that.
I would hope if you show competence in it, it's because you're interested in it too.
Yeah, hopefully. Because it's all about the user. And that is something that we sometimes forget as developers, that we are actually developing our software for the end user.
Right.
And not for the next release.
I like the term "you are not your customer."
Yeah.
Like I see that in the back end, and it doesn't matter where it is. It's like often we wear ourselves in the way the software uses. It's like how many hours a day do you use the software? Well, none. It's like, so you're not the customer, are you? Like when I profile the customers that actually use this particular application, they're using it 6 hours a day. So they probably look at it very differently than you do. What are the fundamentals? Like, if you think you care about this sort of thing, like, what is the first thing that someone has to grasp as a taking on a UX, I don't know, second degree or specialty?
Well, I would say keep in mind that there's a user there. Be clear and concise. But there are hundreds and hundreds of laws and principles and rules when it comes to UX. So when you're trying to read up on it and you just want to brush it off, or just brush up on some UX so you can be better at it at work, right?
Right.
It's intimidated.
So it's too much to just
there
do casually?
Is a lot of things going on, but there is actually one of my favorite UX systems. It's called Tenets and Traps. It's two guys from Microsoft. I think they were on Microsoft Research or UX Research on the Microsoft beforehand. Their name is Steve Herbst and Michael Medlock. And they realized that there is so many laws and rules and really good books and everything and research being done for hundreds of years. So they try to boil it down because people need to understand the gist of it. You can't come into a developer, and I'm not calling developers stupid or anything, but you can't come into a developer and say, can you make this feel like this?
Right.
Because you can't code a feeling. You need to know exactly what you're going to do. So they actually went ahead and did a lot of research, and they boiled everything down to Tenets and Traps, it's called. So basically,
is this a book?
No, this is actually a deck of cards.
Oh, interesting. You have the cards in your hand.
I have the card. Yeah, because
props on a radio show,
it's
always a good
amazing. It's amazing. We can have a picture of it or something.
We'll do that.
No, it's a deck of cards. So basically, it's a couple of tenets, which is a good thing about UI. So like responsive or understandable.
Right.
Makes sense. Common language that we all can understand. And then there are a couple of traps degrading those tenets. So if something isn't responsive, well, something is slow or doesn't feel like anything is happening on the web page or your app, you know that you're degrading that.
It's like that moment of uncertainty. It's like, did I press the button?
Yes.
Because there's no immediate prompt that I did.
Yeah.
It just sort of goes away. And I mean, how many times do we now have issues where people push the button multiple times?
Yeah.
And how many websites have you seen that says, only press this button once?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, okay, that's a good solution.
I'm
to the
scared
problem.
when I'm doing online shopping because I'm one of those who just presses until something happens.
Yeah,
and that's not good for my credit card.
Well, it just means the work of undoing it too. But we get back to if you really should only push it once, it only be possible to push it once.
Yeah.
But better still, let the user know they pushed it successfully.
Yeah.
Right
and
away.
that is the gist of what they have boiled this down. It's basically a bunch of if this, then that. And it's logical and it's complete English, so you can actually understand what it says. That's why I really love this particular system, because you don't have to learn those hundreds and hundreds of principles and laws and things like that in the beginning. You can just get on and do a great UX. But basically, it's all about what you said. We need to let the user know, have they pressed a button?
Right.
Can they even see the button?
Right.
Does it look like a button it's supposed to actually be clickable? Sometimes people do
graphical features, or the great one is undermining the underlying text of a link.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Those, or when you have the headlines like actually looks like a button.
Right.
If that's not clickable, that's not a good UX.
Yeah, don't make it like something we believe it to be something else.
Yeah.
So, certainly tenet number one, responsive. That when the user does something, you can show that you understood that they did it, and that if they're not supposed to do it again, don't make it possible to do it again. Like, that's number one. But I love this, don't mix up your metaphors, too. You create a headline that looks like a button, but it's not a button. And now I don't know what's a button, what isn't.
It's not understandable.
Sure.
Which also is a tenet.
That it has to be understandable.
Yeah. And understandable, I think, is the one with most traps. Because you can mess things up. Remember the charms bar
Yeah.
in Windows 8? Yeah.
The charms bar.
Yeah.
What was that for?
Well, that was for my mom. I would actually.
But did your mom
say.
get it?
Well, it's a funny story. So my mom, she was as untechnical as they come. We are talking when she was on XP, my brother went over there and fixed her computer, and he only changed the color from the bright blue to the olive green.
Okay.
Because you could do that, and you can also have the chrome color. You could have 3 colors back then. So she called me almost hysterically. Oh, your brother ruined my computer. Oh, he sucked. Oh, he completely ruined my computer. And he took away all my games, and I don't know how to do it. Could you please help me install all those games again?
Right. So she believed the games have been removed.
Yes, they were gone. He just blew the computer clean.
Brothers
right?
do that.
Yeah, but he didn't.
No.
Turns out they were on the desktop, but they
Okay.
were green.
And so because
So
the
for
color
her,
had changed.
Yeah, they were effectively invisible.
There.
So this is
Did she
just
have
to
red
set.
green blindness?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. But she was used to them being blue, so
so-
that was what she was expecting.
So she didn't see them basically
No,
anymore. Okay.
but if we fast forward, I mean, my brother, he is as technical as they come.
Sure.
He's younger than me, so he was born with a computer in one hand and a register hacking in the other, basically. So fast forward to Windows 8. My mom got a Surface, one of the first Surfaces.
Right.
And we didn't have time to actually show her how to use it. So she went home. She lives far from me. And she went home, and I was expecting all the calls. You know the calls.
It's a new machine.
Yeah.
Everything's going to
She
go
went
wrong.
from XP to Windows 8.
Okay.
That is a big step.
Well, it's only technically 2 versions, but
Yeah.
metaphorically.
But remember the colors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody who couldn't handle green, how is she going to handle
Exactly.
quote, Metro?
Exactly.
Okay.
But there never was any calls. So I
Interesting.
just, I figured she didn't use it.
Yeah, that'd be logical. He was
Yeah.
sitting in the back room. It's never been
Yeah, but she used it, apparently. She
So she
did.
totally got it.
She totally got it. And then
Wow.
one day, my brother bought her a new router and was connecting it. And she was getting a little bit more interested in all these technical stuff. So she wanted to look how the internet worked.
Right.
Like, where does this cable go? And how does this work? So she followed him around when he installed the new router. And when it was time to actually put in the new information, the login information, on network information on her Surface, he was like, yeah, you don't have to watch this. This is going to get ugly. Microsoft destroyed Windows. Windows 8 is the worst thing ever. You can just go and have some coffee, and
While
I will
fight my way through this problem.
Exactly. And she was like, what? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? It's like, yeah, I'm going to find the network settings. And she just went up to the computer and swiped from the right.
Here
and
come
up
the
comes the
charms.
charms bar.
Yeah.
And she meant, you mean that? And he was like, yeah.
That's where that is.
So my very untechnical mother owned my technical brother in Windows 8.
Nice.
But she was probably the only one who knew about the charms bar.
But again, you always have this problem of us technical people look at it so differently. And we have this baggage. We've learned these previous systems. And so when they make new, arguably more approachable systems, we still feel like our cheese got moved.
Yeah, exactly.
Just give me a moment here for this very important message.
Hey, Rockheads, this is Carl Franklin,
And this is Richard Campbell.
here to announce the NDC Sydney Conference, September 17th through 21st.
Go to ndcsydney.com to register.
Tell them Carl and Richard sent ya.
And we're back. Richard Campbell here in Berlin for an in front of an audience interview with Jessica Engstrom. We're talking a little about getting up to speed on UX, sort of the fundamental concepts here. And again, great story with your mother around there are new UI and UX paradigms that really don't apply to us as experienced technology people. I just wonder if we can get better at building software that's like that our average customer uses it comfortably, even if it's a little bit frustrating for us.
Yeah, but I think keyboard shortcuts and all of those things are great for power users,
Right.
but you need to have clear ways to do it if you're not a power user. And you touched one of the points, actually.
Yeah.
You said that if you move my cheese, I can't find it.
Right.
Yeah. That's why you should not invent your own stuff. If there is a certain way to do things, components or what have you, that is already standard, utilize that.
Sure.
Because you don't have to actually teach your users how to use your software.
And I totally subscribe to that. And I remember, being the old guy too, back in the Win 3 and even the Win 95 days, we got pretty strong style guidelines from Microsoft about this is where the file menu goes, where the help menu goes, and, sort of that standard metaphor with the multi-user interfaces and so forth. But they kind of punted once you get into the Win 8 timeframe and WPF, where they really didn't provide a lot of guidance.
Yeah, but remember Windows Phone?
Yes.
We got a little bit too much
Too guided?
Yeah.
Okay.
Design-wise, we did, because in the beginning, when you were releasing Windows Phone apps...
You're talking Phone 7?
Yes,
okay.
Phone 7. So really, back in the day. We were basically forced to use their type of thinking, but or interpretation of Metro design, as it was called back then. And all the apps looks exactly the same. There were gray little boxes or panoramas, and everything looked exactly the same, which also became a problem because the search button, we had a hardware search button on the phones.
Right.
And that always went to Bing. Every time you clicked it, it went to Bing, unless you were in a native app.
Right. And the native app could
You didn't
override
know
that.
which one was native or not. So people didn't know if they could search for emails. For instance, that's a native app. But since everything looked so similar, there was no way for us to know.
And then eventually you just give up on search.
Yeah.
Because that button doesn't do anything good.
Yeah.
So I don't look there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then developers start compensating for it by not using that button and finding their own ways to do search. And we go down a very negative spiral.
Exactly.
For the most part, I just got an email from someone saying they still did something with their Lumia. So there's like a few still standing.
Yeah.
I always thought that the design language of the Windows Phone was one of its strengths.
Oh, yes. I love it. If it wasn't for Windows Phone, I should say, I wouldn't be here today.
Really? That was what inspired you to understand.
Yes, definitely,
those
because
strong
it was user-centric. It was all about the user. If you wanted to find your games, today you need to scroll through your 150 apps to find that particular game or app. But back then, you had a game hub.
Right.
And you also, my personal favorite was the Family Hub or the People Hub, I think it was called.
Yeah.
The People Hub, yeah. So if I knew my husband asked me to buy something from the store, but I couldn't remember where he wrote it. So I have to check Skype and Messenger and
WhatsApp
Facebook. Yeah, exactly. So many places and text messages and emails. And we have several emails. But now they have aggregated everything. So all my history with him was in the same place. And that was a strength. I didn't have to go search for my data.
I don't know if that's been duplicated in Android and iPhones to this day.
No.
It's just this idea that all of the concept of people throughout all of these apps could be focused on it was not really an app per se. It was just a capability of the phone.
Yeah.
But it carries for us as software builders, this idea that that's how people think.
Yeah.
That they want one touch point. We have, I think as developers, we have app-centric views.
Yeah.
And so this idea that there's a person or a customer that might be spanning multiple apps, we really don't make it easy to make that happen.
No.
That's a really interesting problem. And it speaks to, we should be better at that.
Yeah, we should think about the user.
Weird. Why would you do that? All they do is cause problems.
I know.
I found when I had no users for my software, it worked great.
It did, didn't it?
Do you find sort of emergent problems, like as software gets used more, new kinds of problems crop up? I mean, I certainly as a performance tuning guy see that. But I wonder if, as people use the software and their skills shift, like you actually have to change the user interface.
Maybe, yeah. It depends on what kind of application it is, I think. I mean, if it's an easy application and you only have a few things you can do, then probably no.
Right.
But if you have multiple layers of things you can do, then maybe the user is trying to be more efficient, and then your software is enabling you.
So this is where we get into that concept of when somebody's new to a piece of software, they live on the tooltip, right?
Yeah.
Like they're hovering their mouse over things and trying to navigate without clicking on anything, without making any mistakes. But as you become more expert, you want more shortcut keys.
Yeah. But I think if you think about your visual hierarchy in your application or web page or what have you, you will get away with so much more, because if we go into our web page, we won't read every single line of text before we do anything, right? We just browse it. And if there's a visual hierarchy, we will directly know that this is important, and this is not as important.
So what is a visual hierarchy then? Like what do you do in your app to make that so?
It can be colors. It can be headers.
Right.
Things like that, that actually doesn't look like the rest of the page. And also, if you have search, for instance, that's usually up in the right corner.
Right.
If you have things around that, people will automatically see it faster as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I've certainly had the effect that we've been trained that the sort of right-hand side of a web page is full of advertising.
Yeah.
So if somebody puts something important over there, they just don't see it.
No.
And I've certainly had that experience where someone said, we'll use such and such a feature. And I'm looking at the page and going, where is it?
Yeah.
It's on the right. And it's like, as soon as they pointed out, I thought, okay, it's there, but there's ads right there. And so I wasn't even, you block it out of your mind.
Yeah. And it's a thing. Mm-hmm. They've done tons of research, and there's a name for it. I think it's called advertisement blindness,
right,
or something like that.
But it's like the whole right side of the screen.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and that comes down to standards. If you're using standards that when you have navigation, you have it on the top or the left,
right,
and you have other stuff like ads on the right.
So you've created a visual hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly, because the right side of that web page will be less important, because that is what we're training ourselves. It's not what we put in there, because you can put like a big red button, but I will still think that it might be, I'm expecting an ad.
Right.
So that therefore I won't look there.
Funny, ads tending to be garish. The more obnoxious I make that button, probably the more blind I'll get to it.
Oh, that's true.
That's funny.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is now?
I guess it's time to jump back into the studio for the mid-body break.
Well, it's time to replace the solid footing of this incredible interview with the shallow bling-bling of some stupid jokes with no purpose whatsoever.
You got a lot of bling in this show, my friend.
The humor equivalent of blinky lights.
There you go. Look at the blinky lights.
It's time to give away a free conference pass to Tech Bash happening October 2 to 5 and up to 4 nights at the Kalahari Resort in Pocono Manor, PA for the event. If you want to check that out, go to techbash.netrocks.com, and that is provided compliments of Progress Telerik.
Nice.
Yeah, but first let me tell you about the most comprehensive developer toolkit for building modern apps on the market today, Telerik DevCraft. With more than 1,100 Telerik.NET and Kendo UI JavaScript components and controls, you can easily build modern, high-performant web, mobile, and desktop apps, as well as chatbots. The toolset also includes reporting solutions, automated testing and productivity tools, and comes with a range of support options. New this year is a free online training program for all license holders. With this, alongside thousands of demos with source code availability, comprehensive documentation, and a full assortment of Visual Studio templates, you'll be up and running with the Progress Telerik and Kendo UI tools in no time. Download a free 30-day trial today at telerik.com/download.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner is Fred Mastropasqua.
Congratulations, Fred.
Yeah.
Golf clap for you.
Golf clap for you, sir. And Fred wins a free conference pass to Tech Bash and up to 4 nights to Kalahari Resort in Pocono Manor, Pennsylvania for the event, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you'd like to be a member of the fan club, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world, and every show we like to give away stuff from our sponsors, and every December we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the fan club, but you got to sign up to win. And Richard, did you ask Jessica what she would do with $5,000?
Why, yes, I did. So it falls to me, Jessica, to ask you the question. If you had $5,000 to spend on technology, what would you buy?
Yeah, that is the question. All of them?
Well,
No?
no.
No?
I know all Jimmy actually wants is a raccoon. So
Yeah.
you could get him a raccoon.
No. No.
You're not going to encourage that behavior.
No, I will not.
I send him raccoon videos on a regular basis.
I know. He's so thankful. And I'm thankful because that will calm him down.
There you go.
So he won't try to fight the Swedish government that it's actually legal in Sweden. Yeah.
You don't. A raccoon is not a pet. It's not a
No,
good idea.
no.
But you two are gadget people.
We are.
The question is, what don't you have?
We don't have a Surface Studio.
Good. That's a good.
I need one of those.
With this is the big screen that you can tilt down
Oh,
the low
it's
angle.
so nice.
It's pretty. It's very, very
Yeah.
pretty.
I try to get it home from New York, but
Won't fit in the carry-on.
No. Actually, I couldn't make it fit in my suitcase.
Did they not sell them in
They do
Sweden
now.
Okay.
They do now.
They're over $3,000.
They are not cheap.
No. So that's at least more than half right off the bat there.
Yeah.
But do you use a lot of like CAD software or things where you'd want to be working directly on the screen like that?
No, it's just nice.
It's just that pretty. In fact, I'm not even going to turn it on. I just want it in the corner of my room.
I will just surf the web. Use Surface Dial for Spotify.
Right. And my older daughter is serious about art, makes a living from art and creating webcomics and things like that. And so she works with a Cintiq, which is Wacom's product for drawing directly on the screen. But it took her a long time to learn that because she learned on a traditional tab, which is much more of that mouse type metaphor where you have the screen in one place, hands in another, and you're used to drawing that way. So I don't know if drawing directly to the screen, I mean, for most people is weird.
Yeah, it is. It's still a little bit weird. And also the Surface Dial, I like it, but it's still a little bit
too strange.
Awkward. Yeah. Because I try to move it.
Yeah, you want to slide it.
It's just a dial.
You just put it in place and turn it. Yeah, it's not the same thing. I mean, these are all interesting UX constraints. I would say this: I don't want their computer. I want that screen.
Yeah.
I would like to own a monitor that I can tilt down to that sort of low kind of Star Trek console angle.
Oh yeah, that's what we're going to use it for. Mm-hmm. Cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just put it down there. Have a bigger monitor in front of it. I don't know that I actually want to type on it, but yeah, if I could get a hinge.
You can just press the buttons. That's fine.
Yeah, well, make it beep and bop. I mean, these are other UX constraints, right? This how we interact with the machine. It makes me wonder if keyboard and mouse and screen have been around a long time. And the phone is a little bit of a shift in that metaphor that you do have your finger directly on the screen, but it's not that much of a shift.
No, but I think we're getting more and more into voice and things like that. And we have a lot of other means of interacting with computers and things and like eye tracking, for instance.
Right.
And cameras are getting so much better at catching whatever we are doing.
But I was surprised you didn't ask for a HoloLens with your 5,000.
Well, I have two.
You already have a couple, so you don't really need another one. You can only wear so many at once.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the new UX frontier?
I don't know. I think it is for some areas. I don't think it will ever be a real consumer product.
Really?
Even if they get down in price, I don't see people running around with kind of bulky headsets.
Why?
Because it's kind of bulky.
Right.
And something's got to give. Either it will be expensive like today, or it will have low battery time.
Right.
Or you will have to compromise on the field of view.
Which they've already done.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that HoloLens is now, 4 years old?
It's old.
Yeah. So we're due for, Moore's Law has been continuing to go on. You would think every 18 months that you'd either cut the price in half or double the field of view. Like we'd have significant benefits there.
Yeah, but something's got to give. You can only have 2 out of 3 because if you get battery life that will last forever and you have a large field of view, it will be expensive.
It will be expensive.
So one of the other has to give.
I've been hunting to do a show on HoloLens and production stuff. And the area of the industry that seems to be really grabbing onto it is sort of 3D modeling manufacturing. So the ability to actually look at a 3D representative on an unmanufactured item seems to be an interesting place. I haven't got the show in the can yet, but working on that problem.
Yeah.
So that's a good vertical. Have you had any projects?
Some. And it is
Mostly experimental?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly proof of concept because people are not really ready yet. Well, people are, but companies aren't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they got to see that it actually makes them more effective. Like that.
And sometimes actually HoloLens can save companies money.
Interesting.
We've talked to one particular company that makes turbines. And the way they work today is they build these huge turbines in another country and they build houses for them. They are so big.
Right.
And then the local technician will manage whatever problems it has. And what they have to do is go into the turbine and do whatever you do to a turbine when it breaks. I don't know if you turn some knobs or what have you.
It's just a big red button that says fixed and you press it.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's easy.
Good
that's good UI or good UX. But then he has to go back and monitor the computer and see what the number says.
Right.
And he has to do that a couple of times. And if it's still too complicated for him to fix, he needs to call this company that comes from Sweden. They send down a specialist to this country. And I mean, that is a specialist that is not cheap.
Right.
And he will be out for at least 3 days.
Yeah, sure.
And that amount of money already is more than a HoloLens. So if they instead had a HoloLens already next to the turbine, the first local technician, he could just put on the HoloLens and he would see all the instructions. He would see how it's supposed to be. He can see the numbers in real time.
Right, so he's not going back and forth anymore. He's doing his adjustment.
And if he still needs help, he can either watch a video or do a Skype call or similar where he can actually show his feed because there's a camera as well on the HoloLens. So the specialists in Sweden only need to do an hour instead of 3 days.
It's almost like that's a tier 3 support thing.
Yeah.
It's like you're going one more level, and that high-end technician is able to see with their eyes and sort of work through the same things. You mentioned eye tracking. It's one thing the HoloLens doesn't do, but I wonder if they wouldn't add it.
Yeah, but it's still, there's a lot of work still needed to be done in eye tracking, I'd say.
Right.
There's some good things coming out with eye tracking, of course. Have you tried VR with eye tracking?
No.
It's amazing. And it's also chilling.
Right.
Because if you're playing a game and it's kind of like a bad guy there and he's looking in your eyes wherever you move, that is kind of...
So we're raising the... because VR wasn't already creepy.
Yeah,
This is the extra level of creepy that this person always watching no matter where you look.
But it does make a lot of difference. Even if you have like communication, if you have people, children with autism, for instance, they tend to...
they look away.
Yeah, but if there's actually an avatar that looks at them, it's easier for them to actually talk to them.
Sure.
There's a company, I think they're called Florero. I will look that up so you can put it in the show notes.
Sure.
They are doing a lot of research with VR and eye tracking and things like that for children with autism or anything on the autism spectrum. And they are getting so amazing results.
Well, that ability to practice without having to deal with another person to get over those particular challenges. And I've even seen a bunch of the work done now with paralyzed people where being able to see their legs move through VR is so convincing that it's actually starting to send the signals to rewire their spines. Like that. It's interesting that VR seems so compelling for these very specific cases, and augmented reality still seems fewer, and yet it ought to be more.
Yeah, I think it has a very good potential, and I think it will be easier and more comfortable to work with. But I also think it's more specific cases.
Right.
I don't think all companies will benefit from augmented reality, other than it's being cool, of course.
Unless we get to that consumer level.
Yeah.
Which we don't necessarily know our way through.
Yeah, and I think we need to have like regular glasses or things like that. Very small devices.
You don't want a whole helmet on your head.
No,
anymore.
I don't think so.
You're taking all the fun out of it, really.
Well, I will go out with it. But
Well, and I've always had this belief that if it's good enough, we will make it hipper. Like it'll be more tolerated too. But what are the UX considerations like for that technology?
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
because all of a sudden we are used to having a screen that is square.
And about 3 feet away from us.
Yeah, exactly. And everything to the left or to the top is navigation. And to the right, you were saying that's ads. And we know that, but we can't fixate that on the camera or in the face of the user because they will not be comfortable.
Right.
Only Iron Man can handle that much stuff going on in his face. Yeah. Jarvis. Yeah, that's a UX I don't want to work in. But I think all of a sudden we have 360 degrees of canvas. And we need to be aware of, we have obstacles in the real world if we're doing AR that can actually hinder you to see your menus and your visual cues and things like that. So there's a lot of things to think about. But it's a very interesting field.
Yeah.
And same thing goes for VR. You have 360 there, but you know what is in front of you because you programmed
And I'm trying to decide if VR is the harder problem or an easier problem, because AR has to deal with the physical things that you're still seeing. And you're hoping in VR, you're just taking all that away and you're sort of in a safe space.
Yeah.
But you get to create everything in VR.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
are the world.
Yeah, and it's more, it's more to do, isn't it? And you need to have more computer power to actually run that. And also cyber sickness is, we're still researching. Yeah, motion sickness. Yeah, we're still researching why we get motion sick from VR. And there's a lot of different
Didn't the higher resolution, higher frame rate screens get rid of a lot of that?
Well, some of it, yes.
Okay.
But you still have to think about a lot of other things, like when you're moving, or if you're just moving your head, it needs to be instant. Because if it's lagging, you will feel sick. Right. Well, some people will.
Some are more sensitive than others.
Of course.
Right.
And that has to do with your form of a day. If you feel bad, if you have a cold coming on, you can get more sick.
Right, you're more sensitive.
Yeah, they also have found the female hormones can actually make you more prone to cyber sickness as well.
Sensitive to it?
Yeah. So there's a lot of...
Depending on where you are in that cycle, you may or be more or less sensitive.
Yeah. And if you're standing up or sitting down or have a headache, there's a lot of things going on. And also the whole... You see that you're moving, but your body feels that you're sitting or standing. That's a whole thing as well. So there's a lot to think about.
I'm very aware of motion sickness, spending some time on the ocean and things like that. Yeah. It's like as soon as your body is moving differently than what your eyes think it is, you're on the path.
Yeah.
And so this is just another version of exactly that.
And you have to think about things like have a fixed point. If you're going on a balloon ride in VR, have a fixed point that people can focus on if they're feeling a little bit sick, because that will make things easier.
Right.
And use
the controller. Being able to see your hands, I understand, is very important.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. That too. So seeing the controllers is amazing. Right. But also when you're projecting. No, it's not called projecting. Anyone know what it's calling where you HTC Vive, when you have that beam? So
it's sort of pointing to where you're going to teleport to?
Yeah, teleport.
There you go. I found the word.
That's the word. So if you're teleporting, that will also help when you're moving.
But I like that they create that. I've seen that on the Vive. That little beam is actually a way to stop you from feeling ill. Yeah. It's like you're going to end up there, and then it's almost your brain maps that out. Now you need to jump, and you're not as messed up. Yeah. That's cool. I don't want to get too far off the path of that whole UX conversation, too, because this, while still an interesting UX conversation, is a very niche-y part of the world still. It is. When we think about web pages and desktop apps and what most people are working on every day, I'd love to keep running down, like, how do I make this better? What are the things I'm looking at first? Well,
try to make it as simple as possible, regardless of what platform you're doing. I tend to find it easier if I start at a cell phone size, like a mobile phone or whatever you call it.
Smartphone.
Smartphone. Because then you have gotten all the problems out of the way. And if you can actually press the button on your phone with your finger, it will work with a mouse and
Right.
keyboard.
Everything else will be easier. Yeah, that getting down to a 4-inch wide form factor that can be used with one thumb and one hand.
Yeah.
That just tends to simplify the UX dramatically.
Exactly. And I think if you have that mindset that everything should be easy, you should actually think about what is the most important thing on your webpage. Are you trying to sell something, or are you trying to get them to listen to a podcast? What is most important, and make sure that is visible.
Sort of front and center.
Yes, exactly. So people know that this is the most important thing on this page, and use as many standards and components and things like that as possible, because people already know those.
Right.
You can modify them and to make them look good for your page, of course, but if you start to do some 3-finger scrolling on your page, people will feel it's slower and also difficult to browse your webpage.
Yeah, and especially those kinds of gestures that are kind of secret and specific.
Yeah.
The three-fingered scroll.
Yeah.
I have that happen every so often on some device I'm using that I do it unintentionally, and it's like there's some move on my phone that causes my camera to come up. I just don't know what it is, except that every so often my camera appears.
You know how many screenshots I have on my phone?
From the accidental
3
movement?
fingers.
Yeah, accidental movements.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of secret sauce kind of tricks that are stashed away in there.
Yeah, and I think that is why some operative systems are more difficult to learn than others. Because if you have clear standard way of doing things, it's more easy to actually do it. It will become habituating, right? Which is also one of the tenets.
Right.
Yeah.
To create habits that are consistent and will make it easier for people to get better at it over time. And I have run into software where no matter how much practice you get with it, it never gets easier.
No.
Like there's so many things about it. What do you follow on things like form validation? Is it better to validate on the fly, show them the current mistake? Like I get very frustrated where I correct one thing and then I have to post again. They tell me the next thing that's wrong.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because if you have 10 issues,
right,
it will take forever and I will just rage quit.
Well, do
I'm
something
a rage
else.
quitter. I am a rage quitter.
I think there's a limit. It's in your best interest to not be too patient with software.
Yeah.
At times. It needs to be better than this for me to continue.
Yeah, I think so, because we have so much competition today. So if you are doing something like validating one error at a time, I will go to your competitor because they are validating everything at one time. But whether or not you're doing it in real time or not, I don't think that's an issue, as long as you're clear and you don't have to do it 10 times over, right? So if you want to do it in real time, good, then we know. That can also be an irritation moment, though, because if you are putting in your email address and the first letter you put in, it says this is not a legit email.
Right.
Yeah, people are laughing. People know what I'm talking about. And that means there's the red text coming up, which means I will no longer be typing. I will be reading.
Right.
Because red and motion will draw my attention. So
you don't want to start the validation until you give a sense that the user has finished with that field.
Yeah, but it's you have to. It's a personal preference, I think. I'm one of those impatient persons.
The hunting down of a valid user ID, where it's like how many versions of your name can you come up with?
Oh yeah,
and one that hasn't actually been used.
Yeah, don't get me started on passwords. You need to have a secure password. Therefore, I am dictating to you that you need to have this many letters and you have to have at least one number.
Only 8 characters long.
Yeah.
And I'm all for good password standards.
Yeah, but don't
some of these are really bad password standards.
Yeah, don't force me to do the one thing or the other thing, or how many numbers I should have in my password.
Yeah, no, the math is pretty clearly that passwords are based on entropy, and so longer is better. So if I have a 64-character password and it happens to not have a number in it, you should probably still accept it.
Yeah.
That seems
And that's also bad UX, forcing the user to do something out of their comfort zone.
Sure.
Because if I'm used to doing passwords 64 only letters, then all of a sudden you have to start thinking about numbers. Where do I put the numbers?
Yep.
So it's also You're forcing the syntax basically for the user.
No, I mean, I'm enough of a security guy that I want you to have a good password.
Yeah, of course.
I really want you to have a password that's long enough that is not on the list of top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that.
Or password.
Or password or secret, because that's clever. Oh, wait, but we deleted it. The secrets the E's are actually 3s. That's safer.
Yeah. I like the ones where you can get the as you type your password, it will go
sort
from
of a strength indicator, weak, medium, stronger.
Exactly. Yeah. That's good UX.
Said I'm not a password typer because I use a passwords manager where I literally say to it, give me a 20-character password.
Yeah.
Bunk. So strong. It's when it comes back and goes, your password's too long.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll rage quit on that. Oh, I'm only allowed an 8-character password? Well, I don't think you're qualified to have my data. Thanks very much. That's not enough password for me. I need better than that. Do you find yourself writing emails to certain sites saying you need to make this suck less?
I want to, but nobody would benefit from that.
But you're not raging at that point. You're trying to be helpful.
No, but in the beginning, I'm really frustrated, and I think they're doing things wrong, and I realize I cannot email people saying you're doing this wrong. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's better not.
just be. I think it's the polite Swede in you coming out.
Yeah, maybe, but. Yeah.
Maybe write it up at the time and then read it tomorrow when you're not quite so angry about it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll just make you angry again.
No, I'm good that way.
Okay. If you're over it
if
at
I
that
can
point.
sleep on it, then it wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
So then I won't do it.
Then you won't send it anyway, or you would actually revise it?
Well, it depends.
You do want them to be better.
Yeah, of course. If I know that this is an independent developer, I will probably contact them, but be nice about it because they might not know, or I want them to succeed,
right?
Because I'm all for the community, right? But if it's a company, I don't know. It depends on what it is. If they make me feel like not worth their time,
right?
I will not give my time to them.
Sure.
I think.
Well, and there's no better vote than the vote with your feet. There's people not using your site because your site is awful.
Yeah.
I think that's also an aspect to it. Jess, any last words? What have we missed? Things people should be looking at? I love the tenants and traps cards. I'll make sure there's a link in there for that.
Well, make it simple. As simple as possible, and then you can build from there, I would say, because if you have one thing that your page can do or your app can do, make sure they know how to do that.
Awesome.
And that's it for us at .NET Rocks. Big hand for Jess.
.NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a